Gwan, how you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The number one podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
All right, cool. I ain't gonna waste no time today. First thing we're gonna do is rep yours, Just for Girls Salon. With 3 Atlanta locations, this salon offers haircuts, braids, twists, and press and curls for healthy, natural hair for all girls. Shop their hair care products online and check out their blog for tips on hairstyles to try and how to take care of your hair and more. You can find them at www.justgirlssalon.com. So, welcome to the last episode of the season. I appreciate all of you who hung in there. Today is going to be a real good discussion. We're going to talk about the shift in abortion rights to the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade. There have been some states that have changed their abortion laws, and it is having a huge effect on women and their rights. Join us in this discussion and let us know your thoughts as the panel provides their thoughts and opinions on banning of abortion and what we perceive it means to women. Oh yeah, understand that we are dudes, so don't go too hard in the paint on us. All right, cool. Really easy, at least I hope. What are your thoughts on abortion?
I guess I'll jump on this one, this being a heavy topic. And I identify as they. Thank you very much. Like, no, I'm just playing. Let me see my thoughts on abortion. Overall, I just feel that as a male in particular, I don't really have a say in the matter. I feel like if it's a necessity, and I think that's what the intention behind abortion was essentially the preservation of life, in a sense where if a delivery was going to be harmful to either the mother and the baby or either one, that an abortion would be looked upon as a necessary medical procedure to preserve life. As long as it is for that extent, I believe, there's really no harm in it on a moral perspective, taking it solely as a means of preserving life. I know it's been getting a lot of traction lately because of the idea or premise that people are having unprotected sex and aborting the babies as a means of, controlling, cycles and not having children. But I don't think that's the entire picture. I believe that some cases there are a necessity for it, and that choice is completely up to the person having the child. And so ultimately, I don't really have a stance against it. I am pro-choice, even as a Christian. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, man, that's well said. I think, yeah, like you mentioned, like you kind of alluded to something really critical for me, and it makes the conversation really tough. Growing up in the church, you constantly hear like, abortion is wrong. You're not supposed to, even my pastor, even with the recent news, they are pro-life, so growing up with that ideology and kind of growing up in the system that we live in today. And I think I had to really form my own ideology around that. But overall I am pro-choice as well. But I always struggle with the idea of how do you marry the two together? Because I think ultimately I don't think you can really just be absolute on one side or the other, because I think there's a middle ground that can also be. I think there's a place for people who are in the middle as well, because I think there are situations where abortion is ideal, and I think there are situations where you can also kind of let the pregnancy go through it, but I don't know. I mean, one thing that I really didn't realize is that abortion is really like 25% of the women who have abortion have had kids before. It's not really like because you would think when you think of abortion, you would think it's like all these young people having sex and reckless sex, and then they get pregnant and then they decide to have abortion. But when you actually start digging into the numbers, it's actually really interesting because the woman, most after the woman, well, at least 1/4 of the women who decide to have abortion are moms. And one of the reasons that they, at least they say they do it, is because they can focus on the kids they have now. And that was something that I found really interesting because I was like, that was not like because I would think that's a decision, a conversation like that would happen between the mom, the husband, and the wife. And I guess I didn't really thought that could be something that they would do. But I would just kind of leave it at that. But I think men do have a say in the pro-choice, pro-life decision. I know, Glenn, you kind of mentioned that, you think the man, you don't feel like you have a say in that process. But I think if a man completely is in the life of the mom, at least plans to be, or especially if you're married, I think you should have some influence. Your voice should be strongly considered in that whole decision. But I'll leave it at that. And I know I kind of struggled to formulate my thoughts on that, but I'll try to do better in this next question. Let's go.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's not an easy thing to question because you're trying to articulate and balance what's going on. So you mentioned that you don't think you can be absolute on one side or the other. And I contest it as in, like, I'm just pro-choice, right? I can't tell a woman what to do with her body. I agree with you as a man. If, I've helped create the child, I'm going to give my opinion. How the person I'm with weighs my opinion, I can't really say. So I'm not the one carrying the child for 9 months or going through the pains or going through anything else. I'm just trying to give input or opinion from where I stand. It's a challenging situation, right? So, this is my personal opinion. It's just that I can't tell someone how to manage their child, right? So if it's not someone that I'm with and what I'm doing with them, if someone decides to get an abortion, that's their choice. We're fed that information that most abortions are done because they're young teens who are having unprotected sex and who are trying to get rid of the child. And we're also told that, abortions happen so late in like the third trimester. And that's really not the case as we look at the facts. Most of them occur in the first trimester. So it's really tough to sit there and digest any loss of any life, especially a child who is innocent. But once again, if there's going to be harm done, and Glenn mentioned it, to the mother or the child, you have to make that choice, right? And that's not an easy choice to make. It is very difficult to sit there and say that, yeah, all life is precious, but at the same time, it's just like, if someone decides to get an abortion, I wouldn't hold anything against them. It's
Yeah.
their choice. Like back in the day, people were going into alleys and getting it done illegally, right? And it was more harm done.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just like, if you have a safe measure of doing it, then let it be done, right? I would rather someone go to a clinic and professionally have an abortion instead of escaping across state lines or country lines to get it done. So let's provide a safe environment for this to happen, because if we don't, it will turn out a lot worse than what it needs to be.
Yeah, I do want to clarify. I am pro-choice, but when you go to church and you try to live by the book of of life, that question always comes up, like, okay, so like for me, like there's only one scenario that I always question myself, like when I feel like maybe people shouldn't have that way to use it as an escape, because I know the percentage is low for this, but if you are reckless out there and you use the abortion as a way to get out of your responsibility, I know it's not my place to tell someone like how to live their life, but that is the only situation where I feel like, man, why, like, I mean, like, I'm just saying it as a like a reason why I'm like, okay, I don't think that should be a way to get out of a responsibility. But I also understand the other side of it, because you don't want to it's better to not bring a kid into the world that you're not ready for and potentially like not care for, and actually things can end up even worse for that child. So I get that. But yeah, but overall for me, like what all of you, what you guys have said, I mean, actually abortion has went down from like the 80s. It's cut by like 50%. So less people are having abortion now than it did in the 80s, which is really good. And I think one of the reasons for that is because we have preventive measures in place now than we did before. Even in the low income communities, there are resources out there for people, that people are utilizing, condom and contraceptive pills and all of that stuff, or methods. So yes. But I do understand all the medical reasons. As a dad, a new dad, been in that room and seeing, what the moms go through, because I do have a new full appreciation for moms. You seeing like what they go through for that 9 months. You do appreciate them, and it is hard to tell them, like, if I decide not to, I don't want to put my body through this. You do have the right to do it, so I get that. But as a man who also partake in the creation of the fetus, I feel like I should also, it could go both ways. It could be the mom want to keep the baby and the dad said, no, I want to get rid of it. So like, or it could be it could be the vice versa as well. So, but yeah, it's a really interesting conversation to have.
I want to turn on that, right? So let's say the woman comes to the man, or the significant other is like, hey, we're 3 weeks pregnant, I want an abortion. If you were in that situation, how would you really look at that?
I mean, we're gonna have to, I feel like it has to be a decision between both of us as a couple. That's why, and the things that needs to be critical in the decision for the mother or the mom to be, or whatever, the pregnant lady, is you have to look at the role the guy is playing. Do you trust that person? Because I think the role of that man in your life should have some value in your decision to how much you value that guy's input. Because I think the importance of that, the role that he plays in your life, should drive how far you value his input on your decision making. I think it should be able to influence you in a way. It doesn't mean that it can force you to make a decision. Ultimately, it is your body, it's the woman's body. You cannot be forced to do whatever you don't want to do. But I feel like the man's opinion should just be equally considered when you are going through that process. And you both should be in the room, sit down, maybe write down the pros and cons, especially if you're married or in a relationship, in a committed relationship, then you can go through that list and make a decision. That's just how I think. That's how I feel. I will hope, if I get a girl pregnant and she just tell me I want to get rid of it, I'm like, yo, can we talk about this? And list out the pros and cons and see if we can make the decision together, not just
hope the woman that you get pregnant is your wife.
Definitely. Well, I said that, right?
I'm trying to break it up. This is a very, very heavy topic.
It is, and if it's not your wife, then that's what I'm saying. Then you look at the kind of relationship with the person. If the person is you just met the person, then they have less of an influence. But I still think you should let the person know and let them share his thoughts on it. And maybe you don't. Then that's what I'm saying. You weigh the scale of how much influence they have based on the presence of that person and the role they play in your life as of the time you got pregnant. So that's how I think. That's how I see it.
It could even be, and just to add on there to that one, because that's a great point, because I think that's called pregnancy vetoing. And essentially, with Roe versus Wade, how it's set up currently, where it is allowed, as far as abortion goes, a man does not have the right to veto against or for, an abortion. It's purely up to the woman whether or not she wants to move forward. So even if you said, hey, babe, no, or I don't want you to do it, if she went ahead and do it, there's nothing unconstitutional about that. She possesses the right to do that. And, in that regard, I feel like the reasoning behind it doesn't always have to be, well, you can't provide or you can provide. It could just simply be because she wants to. And that could essentially be a part of the issue as well. But at the same time, I guess the problem there is if a man can tell you when not to have one, he will also have the power to tell you when to have one. And I feel like when it comes to parenthood and pregnancy, men really don't have a say, and that's written by law we really don't have a say in the matter. And it's, so it's not even so much of it being my opinion, it's just a fact.
Yeah, I
Like,
get it. I mean, yes, veto is like you actually have that's giving you actual power. And when I say influence or like consider the input of that person, it's not actual power. Is like, you know, when you in a corporate setting, one of the skill set that you look at is how can you influence decision making. My dog is barking crazy. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that, but but pretty much what I'm saying is it's not the man is should be considered and be able to influence your decision making, and his voice should be considered. It doesn't mean it doesn't actually have actual power. It cannot force you to do anything. But that's what I'm saying. Like it should be a decision. Like any couple, they can sit down and have a conversation and figure things out.
I agree.
Yeah, it's one would hope, right? So let's take the logic out of it and put emotion in it. Do you think that's emotionally reasonable? For the sense that you're having a conversation about the gift or taking away of life. And depending on when this is brought up and depending on the situation, do you think it's going to be as easy as two people coming together and saying, hey, let's list this out and let's figure it out? Or do you think there's some nuances in there where it presents a challenge? This is a huge life-changing decision, right? So I would hope that people can sit down and talk, but to be realistic, depending on the situation, they may not be able to. Being a man myself, it's just like, would it hurt if I was just like, hey, you know, I want to, you know, keep this child, and the woman decided to abort it? Then, you know, that's really tough to deal with. But the thing is that I think a woman should have full autonomy over her body. I can't step in between that, and I wouldn't want to step in between that. I'll give my opinion, but they weigh it as much as they want to. They can say, hey, thanks for the input. I'll make a decision based off that. Like, no, this is what I want to do. And I can't feel any type of way. And I never want that to change in law, because that would just be a world of hurt. Like, you know, as a man, no, I'm making myself responsible about your body, which I think is just not going to go over too well with any woman at any given time.
And facts. And that's why they always tell us, be careful who you lay with. Because let's be real, like the emotional side of it, it's very, they just gotta be really, I mean, I hate to throw it on the fellas, but it's like, considering how it is, you know, just based on the facts, we really do have to be careful who we lay with. But in the same sense, yeah, we should not disregard a woman's rights. And I feel essentially with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, that's essentially what happened. They didn't get a say in the matter. And you look at who's agreeing to these laws, you know, who's agreeing to the overturning. I mean, that's another issue right there in itself.
I mean, some women agree with the overturning of it, which shocked me, because it's just like, well, I would think you'll be for pro-choice. So, I mean, I can't tell a woman what to think or how to feel. I never would try to. I just, from my standpoint, I'm just like, okay, wow, this is interesting. I would think you would want your own autonomy. And I'm sure most women do, but it's weird to tell, as a woman, to tell another woman, like, you can't do this. It's like, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, because it's not only even just to add on real quick, they're not even just the ability to abort, but also impacts what contraceptives and birth control that they can get access to. And it's also along the lines where some people, I know of some women that use birth control just to get over the pains of going through the menstrual cycle. So for some women, it can be very agonizing. Like those cramps that they go through, some of them use birth control just to reduce those cramps so they can function as a normal human being. So it's just like, at the same time, I feel like the women that you see that are against it, a lot of it can be political, but then a lot of it can also be religious or moral based, to where it's just like, hey, to raise a point that Francis asks, as a Christian, you're kind of gripped with, well, how can you be a Christian and support the murder of babies? You know, and that's something that's often thrusted against you. Like, how can you?
A really bad way of looking at it.
That's how they do it, though.
I mean, not to cut you off, but like, I just like, oh, I'm going to put this on you, like, oh, you're supposed to be a child of God, and you're saying that you're with, you know, killing children, and it's just like, hey, we're fallible people, right? So I'm gonna have my mistakes, but this is what I believe in, and it's not up to you as the church to forgive me. It's up to Jesus Christ himself, when I get judged on that day and when I step to those stairs, what was the most egregious thing that I've done where I'm getting sent to hell? So
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier to say that than, but if you actually want to follow the word, is the pastor is there to actually be a representation of God on earth, and he's teaching his word to his people, right? So, and I think it's really interesting though, because I mean, there was actually the church that I grew up with was really, I had to leave because I thought they were blending politics and church a little bit too close for me, and I felt very uncomfortable. And so I went. So I'm at a different church now, but my parents still go there. I grew up at that church. But that's the church is known to do that. The church ideology really aligns with the Republican, at least the new school, new school
I think it's
Republican, right?
always been like
Uh,
that. I mean,
well,
it's
I mean,
conservative.
right,
As a
but
Christian, you're
Republic or
mostly conservative.
Democrat were the old school Republicans, right? And that changed. I'm not sure exactly the timeline when that changed
It was
over,
like
but
around like what, the 1930s going into the 1940s.
yeah, but well, I said all of that because the church is like, one of the lobbyists of some of these rules, so like, like they are pushing, churches were happy about the recent change, like they were excited about it. Like the first thing I think I follow even my new church now, like they posted it on their IG page, like hallelujah, pretty much hallelujah, yeah, God is here. Something I don't remember
So
exactly some
that's a
go ahead.
challenge, right? That's a huge challenge.
It is.
So to me, church and politics are one on one, right? They're hand in hand. So if you look at what the church preaches and any conservative side that you look at, no matter whether or not it's Democrat or Republican, they're together. I'm not saying it in a negative way, but you kind of lean toward your political affiliation. You lean towards how it mirrors your values. So
Yeah.
you're not going to vote for something that your values don't align with, and that's reasonable. But I would think any church would be happy that there's a preservation of life, being that that's the teaching of the Bible. I missed the Squared Up with God episode. It was really good and really interesting. So for those of you who are listening, definitely check that out. I have limited comments when it comes down to church, right? I think out of all of us, I'm the only one who stands on the outside. But to me, any religion that you decide to follow, I have nothing against. Just be a good person at the end of the day, right? Just don't intentionally harm people, don't intentionally do negative things. So when it comes down to going back to abortion, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You may know, like, I don't know too many churches, or if any, that will be completely pro-choice and saying like, yeah, like it's okay for you to abort a child.
Right. And that's when you have to kind of make your own decision, because I know my mom, she said something like some time ago. She says, to be honest, she said Black people value ties more in the Republican side, but a lot of us vote Democrat. I forgot exactly one of the reasons she stated that, but it's true though, to your point, a lot of this more conservative ideology aligns with the church, and it's hard because you have to find a way to separate that, and really you have to really think what are really your ultimate value, like you stated. What can I go without, what can I go with, and do you just like, I don't know, I don't know, I struggle with that. That's why it's so tough. It's really tough. It's a tough place to be.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be easy. Yeah, something, Glenn?
Now I was just saying, like thinking like to myself, really the only denomination that's tied to politics is Catholicism. Like, and honestly, we could talk about one of the things that look like is going to be a talking point is the separation of church and state, where you have the Colorado Congresswoman making that a big part of her campaign. I think she's trying to something for a potential primary is fusing both church and state, allowing the church to dictate what the states can do. And obviously that's not going to bode well. That just breaks so many of our other constitutional rights as far as freedom of religion. So I mean, honestly, it's really Catholicism. That's the political. They are the ones that are invested with these politicians, lobbying, giving money, tithing, supporting campaigns. Let's be real.
So you don't
but
think it's Christianity as a whole?
I don't think
Yeah,
it's Christianity as a whole.
that's interesting.
I don't
Really?
think it's
So,
Christianity as a whole.
I mean,
because you have so many denominations within Christianity, that's a part of the problem too. But I really think it's primarily Catholicism. You look at if you look up most presidents, they're Catholic.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's presidents. When you look at your representatives or your senators, what are their religions?
Mostly Catholic.
I think it's interesting to look at. I wouldn't just point to Catholicism. I think, like I said, sitting from the outside, looking at the whole of Christianity, there's so many different sects, and I never understood that. Right? I never understood why Christianity had to compartmentalize itself. If you're reading pretty much from the same Abrahamic religion, why do you need to be separate from one another? And I never understood the separation of the Abrahamic religion in the sense of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Those are all interesting things to me that could be tabled for a different conversation. For
Facts.
Yeah,
That sounds like
definitely.
another one.
I don't want to go.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a
far
whole
into
nother
it.
thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
it plays a significant role, but it's not going to overtake this episode. Do you think Roe versus Wade is an outdated ideology? As in, the federal government should be in charge of whether or not abortion is legal or whether or not it should be banned? Or do you think it should be up to each state itself?
Yeah, no, I think it's not outdated because it's kind of tied to the 14th Amendment, which kind of gives us the right to privacy, a right to privacy. Yeah, I think it should definitely not. I think things are at the federal level is always more important because if you start leaving it up to the state to make decision, we'll have the mess that we have now. There are some things that's appropriate at the state level, but with this kind of big of an issue in our society today, I think having it at that level is critical. So, I think a lot of the social rights are tied to the 14th Amendment. So I think it's not. I would not say it's outdated. To still like utilize that same law that applies to abortion rights or not. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would say I feel the separation between federal and state is essential in this sense because despite what happened with the SCOTUS, states are still able to elect, to say, hey, we offer these protections, what I think is vital. Otherwise, you would just have this complete overturn of what was constitutionally afforded to us. So, like in a lot of cases, for instance, look at marijuana, still not descheduled, yet states are able to sell it. So it's just like, in my sense, that's democracy at its finest. And that's what this government is built on. So why not? I think it's important, it's essential. Essentially, what happens on the federal level, yes, can steer what happens on the state level, as we see some states overturned it as well. But at the same time, it would be nice, it would be ideal to have both state and federal aligned, but that's not the case here.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking at it from a positive standpoint, but to your point, it can also happen the vice versa as well, where it's actually has a negative impact on the society. But I was thinking of it like if something good is being applied at the federal level, it automatically impacts everyone in the states. But obviously, when it's something like what just happened with the Roe and Wade overturn, then yes, then that's when the state and federal level division does helps out because every state can kind of define their own rules and regulations around that. So I guess to your point, yeah, I could see that. That makes a lot of sense.
Cool. So you're for more so states making their own decisions.
Yeah, because of the other side of it too, because it's not one-sided, right? So there's so many different factors that could come into play. So, but ideally, if we could get things, get rules change that are more positively impacting our society at the federal level, I think it's more impactful that way. Then you don't have to keep fighting at the state level. Like for example, like the marijuana conversation, like just people in jail, like they're impacted by it. But if you can make a change at the federal level that actually as that automatic trickle down effect, then we don't have to keep fighting at the state level. It's like a one and done fight, right? So that's why for me, I would love it if it was like that, but like just like Glenn stated, is unfortunately it doesn't always work on the positive end for us.
So which one would you prefer, people being appointed or people being elected?
Actually, I think people should be elected, bro. Because I mean, some of the laws, right? The way like you can get appointed, by a new president, then the person can be there until they die. Like at least at the Supreme Court level, I think that's BS. Like, you know, I don't know. I feel like we should as people should be able to elect them, and there should be a time frame where they can get cut off at some point. They can't just like have this lifetime, you know,
So
decision
let's look at that.
power.
Right?
Yeah.
So if someone's elected for a term, right,
Mhm.
term to sit on the Supreme Court, do you think their motivations are driven by their reelection? Do you think, being that they have a lifetime seat on the Supreme Court, they're actually going to make a this is my opinion decision, and it's not weighed on anything else? It's not like, hey, I want to keep the seat next year, so I'm going to make some rulings that will make me favorable, instead of just like, yo, this is the ruling based off the totality of circumstances, based off information from me, based off other presidents of other cases, that this is what I'm rolling with.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of games being played. I mean, this politics being played at all level. There's a lot of lobbying and debates and favors being done, at all levels. So yes, obviously, there are people doing stuff for people for like, okay, it's like IOU, 'cause let's be real, there's a lot of IOUs that goes on in politics. So yes, I mean, yes, to your question,
I
definitely.
guess here's my take on it. In a way, we latently or vicariously selected that Supreme Court justice based on who was voted on. Because essentially you elect your president, right?
You're
The
right.
president nominates the Supreme Court justice and the Senate confirms them. So
Right.
essentially, if you voted for this person, in a way, you also voted for that Supreme Court justice if they got confirmed. So to me, it's like, despite the appointment happening by, a combination of the president and the Senate, I feel like, in a way, because we voted for that president, we got that person in there. And I think my biggest chief complaint is the life terms as well. Like, I feel like as times change, the justices should also reflect that to ensure that everyone is equally covered. If you have a guy that was voted in from the time Ronald Reagan was made president and he's still here till this day,
Boy,
it's
I think there's some value. I honestly think there's some
Yeah.
value in that, right? There are
why? What? Yeah, what is why?
because there are historical things that we as in our generation do not see back then, right? They're like the Supreme Court justice from Ronald Reagan's era, maybe a Democrat, right?
probably.
Who knows? They could be a Republican that leans towards being a Democrat. So, like you said, Glenn, it's a very valid point. The person that we elect in the Senate or the president that we choose to elect or who we are voted for directly ties to who sits in that seat, right?
Right.
So we have to make wiser decisions when it comes down to it. So I don't know.
Yeah, but
Yeah, because to answer, my affiliation isn't with the party. If there's a justice that's selected by a Republican, so be it. I myself don't align with any party. It's just like I want to get who, at that point, who I feel best meets my needs and the needs of America at that point when I vote. But whether it's Republican or Democrat, but at the same time, regardless, I think Democrat or Republican, life terms are not helping us.
Yeah, but okay, so to your point, Glenn, if that is the case, then why can't we choose? Because I get that. I mean, I understand like we chose the president and they automatically gain, that's part of the power that they are given. They can appoint a justice. But why can't we, at least I feel like we should be able to influence like whoever gets selected when that decision comes into play. because then we can.
You chose the president. You did.
I get it.
I mean, but
I
even then,
get. No,
like,
I'm
even then,
talking
you
about the
chose-
actual.
You chose your senator,
I hear you.
right? So, and that's the thing. So we have a lot of. I said this while we have.
We
more power than
have
think.
like connected influence, yes, but I'm
Mhm.
talking about like, let's actually pick the actual person that's it. Not like, yes, I understand I picked this person, so like then
Uh-huh.
they automatically get this power to pick this person.
Mhm.
No, like this seat is so powerful, it can influence so many things. I feel like I should have primary influence in the decision, not secondary, third level connection to the person that got selected. Like,
So
I'm
do you
talking about
really,
primary connection.
do you pay attention to your races when it comes down to people being elected senator, people being elected?
I mean, to be fair,
your
that's why I
state
feel like it's
representative?
important that we get, because I don't pay attention at that level. I know I should, but I don't.
That's the key, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not.
But I'm
trying to,
not the only one though. Like, there's a lot of us don't pay attention to at that level. Yes.
I know you very well. I don't know everybody else in the world very well. So I understand you're defending yourself, but my expectations will be a hell of a lot higher to you than the average American, right? So I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I appreciate what you're saying. You're making these statements that are valid.
Right.
The whole thing is that you have to pay attention. So when you pay attention, you're still able to advocate for whomever you want to advocate. Just like I know you drive around town or drive around places and you know when it's time to vote because you see these banners everywhere, right?
Right.
I've seen banners on top of banners on top of banners.
Okay, fine. But like, that's the old school ideology too, though. Why, like, we are into 2022. Let's change the way we do things. Like, let's adapt to the way the society is. Our attention span is shorter than anything else in the society. Let's meet people where they are at.
And how do we?
That's all I'm saying. Yeah, get people to vote for it. Like, that's like they actually have people can actually influence that decision.
What do I need to do to get you to pay attention?
You know, there's nothing you can do. I have to make that decision myself.
There's something I can do. There's something that like there are people who are heavily involved in politics.
I get it. I get it though. But like, yes, I can maybe stop paying attention. But there's plethora of people out there.
They're not talking about other people.
Oh yeah, but this is, I get it. Trying to win one person at a time, Chunky. I love it. I love the
hey, that's
you know.
that's
yeah,
the truth, right?
one man and woman at a time. But what I'm saying is we have such a large youth out there, a young generation of people who don't pay attention to the news. They get their news on TikTok and on IG.
So
and like, okay.
We'll contest that.
Okay.
There are a lot of young people running around Capitol Hill. A lot of interns that are heavily invested in politics.
I mean, of course, there's always a segment of people that love anything. You can find any group of people for anything. Like, people like to watch people toes on TikTok and IG. Like, there's like
that's something I expect.
I'm just toe watch it. Fetishes. Like, there's people like that like any weird shit. You can find it online, and there's a plethora of people who love to enjoy watching it. So I'm not even, that is, of course, there's people in young.
Well, you know what, Fran, your solution is November 8th. Vote.
Okay, so my question to Glenn, I get it, but like, I mean, it's not even about me. I'm talking about the generation. I'm just so Glenn. Do you disagree with that? So are you kind of in alignment with Chunky here?
Nah, I agree. Like, I think if any change, it definitely starts with us first. Like, if I'm not doing it, then how the heck do I expect anyone else to be doing it, right? So the ones to lead that change, it sucks, but I agree, it has to be us essentially to start that, right? Because then, hey, by you voting, you'll probably keep us accountable, right? Like, yo, D, G, did y'all vote? I hope y'all voted today. We talked about this. Did y'all vote? So it's kind of like, I feel like these are the elections, the most important ones are the ones that don't get much attention because they are that important. I agree. Like, I feel like to an extent there is coverage on it, but it's not kind of at the level that you would expect for your presidential election, right? Presidential election, it's entire and fair. Everyone knows about their presidential election. And even then, they still don't vote. And I honestly think the next election is going to be even fewer Black voters, to be honest. But at the same time, it's like that charge, it's a popular vote, and that's change still starts with us. So, you know, I can't really say what the other person's doing, but I know by me not voting that I led to that result that I probably don't want.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my personal stance on politics, I think it's a bunch of fluff. They tell you what you want to hear, and then they go in, and it's a whole nother story. But at the same time,
don't
I
get
feel like,
going with that
yeah,
statement.
I'm just gonna be
No,
finished.
I mean,
I feel like
you're entitled to your opinion, right?
that's my
boy.
opinion. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna vote, but I honestly feel like lately it's just been, I'm gonna tell you what you want to hear. I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna eat, and then maybe I'll pass a bill or something. I'll support something to get something into your hands just to keep you wet until the next election comes, right?
Keep you
Because
wet.
I think these senators will run for another 6 years or so. The ones we vote in will be 6 years. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man, but I'm still gonna vote, but I'm a little pessimistic about what's happening in this country right now.
So that's the problem, right? So there are bills being passed. Some of them don't even make the news. And it takes a certain amount of votes to pass a bill. I can put a bill on the floor, right? So if I ran for, you know, senator in New Jersey, right? You're telling me I'm just going to tell you what you want to hear? You personally know me. You know what I'm about. You know what I'm trying to do, and I consult with you. Also, Fran has nothing to do with New Jersey, but, you know, he can influence his friends in New Jersey or his family in New Jersey to vote for me. So you're telling me the only reason why I'm running is to tell you a whole bunch of bullshit and not go in there and do my job. To not sit there and fight with people, to not sit there to go on camera and say, hey, the people of New Jersey need X, Y, and Z. The people of this country needs X, Y, and Z. These are the people that I'm representing. So you're telling me if I would decide to run for politics, I'm just bullshitting?
Well, you personally no, but the ones that are in Senate now, possibly, yes.
I'm gonna grab that, right? And there are senators that know people that vote for them, that know they're genuine people. And there are some people out there who aren't so genuine, right? That just want to do it the popular way. That's not the best way to do it. I don't have to name any names, but you can see on social media and you can see in the news. Not every politician is like that. There are some politicians that are trying to push things across the goal line. I could come up with an amazing bill that helps everyone in America, but guess what? I'm a Democrat. So what's going to happen? The people across the aisle are not going to agree with me because what? I'm a Democrat. This can be the best thing for everybody. And to me, that's the problem. We become so polarized as American society where we only look at what party you're a part of. We don't look at what you're presenting and putting out. If you think someone's about bullshit, then let it be known you think this person's about bullshit and they have to prove it. They have to prove themselves. You have a lot of power and you have a voice because guess what you have? Social media. It only takes one thing to make someone blow up. And once you blow up, you captivate an entire audience, you have influence. So don't fool yourself that you don't have the possibility to call people out.
Like I said, with today, I feel like, yeah, you got a point, but realistically, am I going to do that? Am I going to take time out of my day to be like, hey, okay, I voted. Now I got to go on social media. Not saying what you're saying is wrong, but realistically, like making that sacrifice of time when I got things that are legit affecting me right now, today, like paying bills, getting a home, getting groceries. And now I got to add, oh, let me keep my senators accountable, even though I voted them in, and make the social media post saying, you know what, Menendez and Booker, I ain't doing ish. What's going on? You know what I mean? Like, to me, realistically, that's not going to convey to the everyday person. Neither is it with myself, because I'm still at the end of the day trying to figure out, when is this next dollar going to come from? When is this next meal going to come from?
And guess who gives
and there's
you
other people that got it
stimulus
worse.
Yeah,
I'm just
saying,
saying,
but Chunky, this is where it kind of circled back to the conversation we having about abortion, because like we have to understand where people, we have to meet people where they're at. Like, I mean, to Glenn's point, man, people out here are like living paycheck to paycheck.
Here it is. Francis is about to make a what if my boss had to make a social media post every time he had to tell me to make sure that I did my job? Do you think I would still have my job? Hell no. If he had to come to me every time and say, hey, Glenn, are you doing your job? Oh, wait, I'm gonna do a TikTok about it so I can make sure you're doing your job. Glenn, did you do your job today? Oh, Glenn, what you do today? Show me your paper. What did you do today? How long would I have my job if I had to do that every time? I felt
So-
my boss felt like I wasn't doing my job.
Man, you probably
So-
going deaf ears, man. It's not
So
gonna, it's not gonna
nah,
be.
and that's the thing. Y'all being pessimistic about shit. That's why we're at where we're at, right? That's why it's hard to look.
I voted
Hey,
though,
listen, I didn't say you didn't.
but I voted. That's a part of it.
So it is a part of it, right? So what's more important to you, right? So you have ends to meet, right? And the person that can help you meet those ends is the person that you elected. That person represents you both in your district and both in your state. So if you sit down and you voted someone in that's not doing the shit that you thought they were going to do, it is not worth your time to get them out to put someone else in that's going to do what you need to get done, that's going to support you on the federal level and even on the state level. So if the state sat there and decided like, hey, we're about to pass a state bill saying that everyone should get their
abortion?
stimulus checks or even abortion, right? There's something being weighed there. And the person that you voted in is going against what you voted for them to be. So you don't have the time to sit there and say like, yo, I need to get this person up out of here and put someone in that actually reflects my values.
Yeah, but that's cool and all, but like if they made but like the deed is done already, right? So I have to wait for the
like bills, things are overturned, things are
right.
changed.
So but the change still happens, so I have to wait for the next term. Then the person gets
you don't.
changed.
If you're able to elect someone in, you're able to get them out.
Right.
It's an elected seat.
Right. So when do we get to like what's the timeline for that? Isn't that the next election? The next
So
cycle?
you have 2 years when it comes down to
Exactly. It's a cycle.
Let me finish. 2 years when it comes down to representatives. There are representatives that mess up and they get kicked out, right? They get pulled out of their seat and there's a special election held. Special elections happen for whatever given reason. Person dies, someone did something wrong, someone gets found at something, they can't hold their seat anymore. Do you not realize your power that you're able to elect people? And as you're able to elect them, you're able to raise concerns for them to not be there anymore.
I mean,
to
Chunky, that sounds good, but I want to know what's the percentage that actually happens.
Then I'll get back to you.
I feel like it's very
low.
low.
I'll get back to it's very low because people think the way that most society does. Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I can't affect change. Even though you are the change, even though you are the person voting that individual in, you are the change.
Yeah.
That's the craziest thing. Even AOC, when she ran, she knocked on every door, right? She made herself known. So you're telling me it was not worth her time to do what she did from the ground up? And there are other politicians that did it too. So you're telling me that you voting for someone, you paying attention to politics is not worth your time because you honestly believe they're not for you. And there are politicians that are for you. There are great politicians out there. They're not on the news all the time. They do the right thing, or they may get canceled for saying something, right? They may have very, very good values. They may be passing bills that you don't know about. Have you paid attention to every bill that's been in Minnesota? Have you paid attention to every bill that's been in New Jersey?
How? Like, when am I going to get the time to do that?
You can go to GovTrack. It literally prints out a summary.
Oh my God.
Yo, but Chunky,
those are things that are important.
I said all of that to say this because I was just to bring it back to what we're talking about. I said all of that. That just sounds like we shouldn't make it so complicated for the people.
How is that complicated?
Because like you just said, there's so much to keep up with. Like this world our life is complicated enough.
That goes to the attention span, right?
Right. Well, like I know it sounds like excuses, but we just got like I'm just saying it is what it is.
It is
like,
not. It is what it is. It's not.
Bro, what I'm saying is, at the end of the day,
I think we're at an impasse.
Yeah,
we're at an impasse.
We have to find a way to influence decision at the top that impact us. With the conversation we're having about abortion and things that
and getting back to that
day-to-day basis.
So Glenn brought up the valid point, which loops all this back together. Who we voted for to be in that senator's chair, who we voted for to be the president of the United States, ended up being the selection when it comes down to the Supreme Court, right? The Supreme Court justices.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of influence and power, but we have to pay attention to it. Things that are worth working hard for, things that are worth having or worth working hard for, right? If it was simple, it would be fragile. So this is a very tough system to get things done, but it's tough for a reason. So going back to abortion, it's just that, hey, if we took our time and really looked at, and actually, if you didn't vote in the election before Biden, that's kind of on you. right? So there are things that you could make. Your vote always counts. No matter, one vote makes the difference. It really does, because one vote leads to the next vote, and you talk to other people about voting. I'm never going to let this down. I'm never going to ease up about it. The reason why, because it's very important to me that everyone on the spot and everyone in the country gets what they want. So you have to go out, do your research and study, and figure out, one, what you truly want, and two, who you're putting in office and putting in that seat. That affects your daily life. That affects your paycheck. That affects your healthcare. That affects the gas prices, groceries, all that stuff that is essential for living, including abortion. So be careful who you're looking at. Be careful who you put in the seat. And if you don't like it, you can raise hell about it. It's not as hard as you think it is. You only make that block, which rolls into pretty much my next question is that, do you believe SCOTUS still serves an important role to the overall governing of people and their rights, given that we are a more intellectually conscious society? I can find out any information that I want as soon as I hit Google. So do we really need a Supreme Court to make those decisions for us?
Yeah, I mean, they're in place to make those decisions. You know, I mean, the only thing I kind of debated on or want change on is the way we appoint them and the number of length of time that they get in that seat. So, you know, after Glenn kind of answer this question, I want to ask you, Chunky, to address where we go from here with the current state of the abortion, with the recent changes, and you know, what are your input on that? But before you answer that, I want Glenn to answer the question you
So
asked. Yeah.
Chunky hit on two things there. One, when I read the question, I'm like, I don't agree with it. And that's the fact, or the idea, that Americans are more intelligent today. And I mean, honestly, I think we've seen a lot of displays of stupidity this past year, in the past couple of years in America. And honestly, I feel like a lot of Americans, and to a point that's being referenced, not directly said, but a lot of Americans are not in tune with what's happening in politics, because they rather keep up with the Real Housewives of Atlanta. They rather keep up with what's going on in Potomac. They rather keep up with Love and Hip Hop. They rather keep up with this propaganda and nonsense. You know what I mean? And we're kind of caught in this kind of rat race mentality where it's just like, okay, where am I going to secure the next meal, the next dollar, the next day? And, you know, the idea that Americans are more intelligent, I don't necessarily agree with that. They're more intelligent now than they were before. I don't feel like as Americans we're truly involved anymore. I think even though we have access to information, yes, and technology is a lot better than it was last year, knowing that any advancement in technology is an advancement. So even when we had a rotary phone back then, guess what? That was the latest thing. So it's just like, with the era, and I think our justices should reflect, just as technology changes with the era, just as ideas can change with the era, so that our justices change with the era to match that. And I'm not saying that every justice is going to give us exactly what we want, but there should be an understanding and a level of understanding to what's going on in society today. The purpose of the Supreme Court is to protect and ensure the promise that we all have equity or are treated equally under the law. That's their purpose. How can you ensure that if you have someone that doesn't agree or doesn't understand the things that are going on today? You know what I mean? To the point where they're willing to overturn abortion rights. So to me, it's just not a direct reflection that we have that support. And then when you have a majority of the justices that there's not like a fair share of justices, you have more right-wing justices than you do have left. So a lot of what passes is going to be geared towards someone that I didn't necessarily vote for. But guess what? I have to eat it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, to me, they are essential, yes. But are they helping us right now? I don't know. I don't know that right now. I can't really say that right now. I think a lot of people would say this decision does not help me, depending on what state that I live in. So to me, I don't know. I don't think it matches up the intelligence level, nor I can't say that we're necessarily more intelligent, nor can I say what's happening now today is helping us. But I would hope within the next vote, with Biden's appointment, that hopefully we can get some equity going on in there, and hopefully something changes with these life terms. I think make them more finite. These life terms, I think, are not helping us.
Yeah, Glenn, you said something that's really important. You kind of oh my God, I just lost my train of thought here. Oh my God. So yeah, I'll come back to it.
So I'll say like a win here. I can't walk over Ketanji Brown. She was elected in first Black female Supreme Court justice. So there's a win there. My personal opinion is that it should be balanced.
Yes, that's
Or it
what
should
I was
be
that's what I was gonna
Republican,
say.
or it should be Democrat.
Yep.
And that ninth person, that's a wild card. I haven't figured that part out yet. So doesn't matter what era they're on. I think they're, like I said before, if you have a justice from Ronald Reagan's era, you have a justice from Clinton's era or Bush's era, they all have input to give, right? And that creates a certain level of balance and understanding. I'm still for a lifetime appointment, but I am for fair and equitable balances of justices, right? I believe that there's more to say about 4 on each end and 1 wild card that will produce something better. And I say wild card in the sense that this, they could be, there are some Republicans that align with Democrat values, right? There's some Republicans that can meet in the middle and understand that, hey, this is the betterment of people. Unfortunately, the reality of the situation is just that what may be good for me may not be good for you. And that's just an unfortunate way that we live in a society. This is how it rolls. Are we looking for optimal performance? Honestly, I don't think so. We're looking at what I can grab as fast as possible. But where it should be is like what affects me should also assist you or minimally impacts you, right? Someone should get something out of the situation and someone shouldn't suffer as much as what someone's gaining, right? So at the end of the day, it's very challenging to sit here and say that there should be limited terms when it comes down to Supreme Court justices. It's very challenging to say that there should be some either giggling in the background.
She's like, F your podcast.
Either she agrees or it's time to wrap this up and be done.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take it up as closure. So whatever I was gonna say next is now canceled. Very valid points around the board. I'm still going to beat the drum. It is important for you to pay attention to politics, and it's important for you to vote. Facts. Everything that you think and that you feel does have a place. So never, ever, ever think it doesn't. And if you do, I'm still going to tell you that it does.
Yo, Chunky, before you close, I do want to get I'm glad that you mentioned the division. That's one thing that Glenn said that lost my thought. I think it should always be divided based on whoever appointed it, Democrat and Republican should always be whatever number it is. Before it could be 5, but it should not be more swayed to one side versus the other. And the last question that I have for you was, what do we go from here? So what, you kind of been talking about like, if things are not done, talk to your local officers and blah, blah, blah. So like with the recent change now, where do we go from here? Like what options do we have
with abortion or
with the abortion law that just kind of like got overturned? Like just from your so what is your viewpoint on that? I do
beat that drum, man. Just beat it. I mean, if you don't like it, then make it known. Gather people together, make the adjustment and make it change. Get people up out of their seats that you don't agree that should be there. I'm not saying
is it like the protests that people are doing? Is that what is that?
Put pen to paper. Protest does get attention, but if it's not changing legislation, your protest is a waste. And I'm not trying to be messed up or foul or disrespectful, but the change needs to be on paper, right? I mean, Middleman March wouldn't have been effective if there wasn't a Civil Rights Act behind it. Like, hey, like that's great that we all marched, but like, what did we get out of it? We got to get something out of it that's put down on paper that has the effect that we desire as the people. Our representatives and our senators are for us. The people that we elected to public office are for us. That's what you have to remember. Even though you may not feel that way, you got the power to change it. You can sit down and push for legislation that these people can't take money from corporations anymore, that they have to do grassroots, that they have to have their funding coming from us. There are people that put millions of dollars down out of their own pocket to run for office and they still lose. So your voice is powerful. Your pen stroke is powerful. Never forget that. And let no one tell you differently. And if they do, they're lying to you. I have no need to lie to you. I really don't. I want what's best for everyone sitting on this pod and everyone that's a part of this pod and everyone out in this country. I can tell you my personal feelings, but at the end of the day, you got to make that choice. If you decide to watch that housewife, like Glenn, you brought up a very point. People are willing to watch that entertainment television. Yes, I'm not gonna lie to you. Watching C-SPAN is not exciting. It is not. I mean, there's sometimes where shit pops off where it's just like, oh shit, that they said that. But for the most part, when they go up there, like, we're on HR 4567, who's voting yay, and it takes like an hour for all the votes to come in, or people are filibustering, talking for 9 hours. That's BS, right? You're stalling something that's vital and important, and no matter which side that you sit on, just be. I can only ask for you to be a fair and equitable person, but I know that's a lot to ask for certain people, right? So, to be honest with you, everything matters, everything counts. Please, please, please don't forget that. And I'll say this in the next season, the season after that, and the season after that. You're important. Never forget that shit.
Facts.
Anything else?
Yeah, you killed it. Well said.
I try hard. At the end of the day, guys, you know what this means? Do you really know what this means right now? I am very sad that this will be the last one for this season.
Yeah.
So for more content or to learn more about the podcast, feel free to check us out at Jerk Joe Pod on Instagram. Podcast episodes drop every Wednesday. Stay tuned for the outro right after this to learn additional ways to reach out to us and send us your feedback. Be sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe. Like what you're hearing, feel free to leave us a review in your preferred streaming platform. It will be a minute before we see y'all again.
Yes, look for us in the fall, winter time, Halloween time. Nice times.
That part.
Hey, thanks for rocking with us. Thanks for being here. We're just trying to release better and newer content. We're trying to get y'all out there to vote or to create havoc or to slap people in the face and try to forgive them. Whatever it is, y'all stay safe until we come back. We don't want to lose any one of you to anything. So if it's something you want us to talk about, for sure, hit us up and let us know what it is. We said in the beginning, way back in season 1, there's nothing off the table. I think. I don't know yet. But anyway, gents, shout out to D Black and shout out to Dre Padre. You were missed.
Machete.
No,
Our local machete.
Hopefully we'll be back next season, and I think D Black is out there doing some Nigerian scams, so we should come back with Flash.
What?
You said it.
He's gonna throw my cousin out.
We got that on record. He said it.
Whether or not it's true, we don't know.
Boy.
Maybe that could be a podcast episode. See how true that is.
Hey.
For instance, you can shed some light on that.
Oh wow. Yep. No comment.
Hey, peace, love, and happiness. Y'all take care of each other out there. Stop being evil to one another. Life is too rough. All right. Just don't make it harder for any one of us.
Facts.
I request of you.
Peace out.
Peace.
See you next season.
And that concludes today's episode, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to end. As a matter of fact, feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for our post-discussion question following the release of this episode. If you are a Black or minority business owner or professional that would like to be featured on the Rep Yours segment of our show, or a listener with some general feedback for the podcast panel, feel free to shoot us an email at jjcpod@gmail.com. As always, likes and comments are always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified when the next episode releases. And until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.